You're listening to the Wordslinger Podcast, Episode 71, The Empire of Simon Whistler.
Writing a book. It can be the best way to build or grow your business, or to simply tell the story that you wish to tell. Learn how to write your book in 30 days or less. Pick up 30-day offer today from Amazon, Apple iBooks, or other online retailers.
It's the Wordslinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented Pants Optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger. Listening to the intro just now, something hit me, and I think it's relevant because the announcer guy, he always says the same thing, right? He always says, it's all about the story here. And that's where this started, right? This all started with story. I'm a big, proponent of story. I'm a big storyteller. Everything I do is about telling a story. And here's what I realized. Sometimes the story you think you're going to tell changes midway through. Now, as a novelist, this happens to me all the time. I'm what's known as a discovery writer, or sometimes known as a pantser, which I think is ironic. But that means that I sort of write off the cuff. I don't really outline, sometimes to my detriment, but most of the time it works out pretty well for me. And so what'll happen is I'll start a story in one direction, and it'll suddenly shift and go in a whole new direction. And suddenly I'm discovering something new about the story that I'm crafting. So those are amazing moments. And what's really more amazing is when that happens in real life, which is essentially what happened with my new friend Simon Whistler, who is, if you are an indie author at all, and you listen to podcasts, and hello, you probably listen to the Rocking Self-Publishing podcast, which is hosted by Simon Whistler. Here's something I didn't know, and he doesn't publicize this much, but aside from the podcast, Simon actually has quite a little empire growing around YouTube. And I was fascinated to find this out because there's a lot that he's doing on YouTube that frankly is just flat out amazing. And he's making a pretty good living at it. So we get into that, and it's one of those surprise moments, a twist in the story, if you will, in the middle of this interview. So I hope you'll tune in and enjoy that. And of course, we're going to talk about, the podcast and indie publishing and all the important things. But maybe more important, though, is this aspect of Simon's career that I didn't realize was there, which is, he's out building something bigger than what I knew. So, and I've been on Simon's show, so I thought I knew plenty about the guy. So it was incredible to discover this in mid-interview. So there you go. I hope you'll enjoy that as much as I did. Simon's a fantastic guy. I love him. He's I don't know. I love when I connect with people that, it's like finding a small piece of your own soul in someone else, like there's this connection you instantly have, kindred spirits, if you will. And Simon's definitely that. So I learned a lot from him just in this interview. I'm going to keep following him, keep following up each month with him, just to see how things are going. I subscribed to his YouTube channels, multiple channels. So you'll be able to do the same from the show notes, which, if you look now, I don't know if you're driving or anything, so don't look if you're driving, but when you're in a safe place, definitely visit the show notes, go check out Simon's stuff, and subscribe. Before we get to the interview, here's our housekeeping bit. I just want to put it back out there that if you are interested in helping support the show financially, I have this huge, lofty goal. I want to raise $5,000 a month in revenue for the show. Now, I'm counting the 30-day author income in that because I do advertise it on the show, and I kind of consider it part of the overall Wordslinger platform. I don't just consider it. It literally is. It has been from day one. It's actually listed on some online retailers as part of the Wordslinger series, we'll say. So all of that, it's not just about providing me with some sort of income, by the way. I want the show to be financially solvent, of course, and I do want to make an income from it because it's work I produce, and I think that anyone who creates something should be able to profit from their work. I just think that's the way it should be. But all that said, the thing that really drives me right now is I know that the show is helping people. I get, messages from people all the time, telling me, how much they enjoy the show, how much they're getting from it. So I want to continue to be able to do that, but I also want to kind of kick it up to the next level because I think there's more that can be done. I'm looking at sort of crafting a sort of word slinger podcast network, and growing my own empire, I guess we'll say. So, and to do that, it's going to take some backing, and I think that we can do it together. I put in a lot of time, money, energy of my own into the show, so it's very gratifying to me to see other people kind of chip in and help out. And there are a lot of ways you can do that. Now, money is one. Patreon is definitely a way to do that. If you go to the Patreon, you can go to Wordslinger Podcast, click on the Patreon logo, and you'll see the Patreon account. You can watch a video. You can chip in as little as $1 a month, and that's absolutely fine by me. That helps. You can buy the books. You can buy 30 Day Author, which is one of the books I use to advertise the show right now. You can also buy my fiction, which, if you go to kevintumlinson.com/books, you can find the fiction. But here's another way, and it doesn't have anything to do with money, and that is you can leave reviews. If you go on iTunes and leave me a really positive review with 4 or 5 stars, that will help the show become more discoverable on iTunes. You can do the same on Stitcher. We're available on Google Play. We're actually available in quite a few markets online. So subscribe to the RSS feed through those services. Sorry, didn't mean to throw anything technical out there. If you don't know what that is, basically just subscribe to the show through iTunes or Stitcher, and then leave a review saying what you like about it and telling people what you're hearing and what you're learning, and that will help us become a greater presence and reach more people, and that helps us help more people. So that's the plan. We're in this together. So thanks a lot. Financial support is greatly appreciated. I do have a financial goal for the show, $5,000 a month. It's a big number, and I think it can be done. Let's work on it. So all that said, let's get away from the housekeeping now, and let's get to the really good stuff, the important stuff. This is a fantastic interview with Simon Whistler. I know you're going to love it. I loved it. I'm listening back to I'm listening back to it now to take a few show notes because sometimes I do these interviews and I just I get so engrossed in the conversation that I forget to take any show notes. So I'm doing that now. So there will be stuff, and thank you for tuning in. Stick around after the interview for our wrap up, and I hope you enjoyed this great interview with the empire building Simon Whistler. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in, and today I'm talking to somebody who, Simon, I'm going to introduce you, but I am going to say that, Americans have this obsession with British accents, and I'm not even going to point out yours. I'm talking to Simon Whistler. With a great deal of irony. He is an author. He's the host of the Rocking Self-Publishing podcast, which you probably listen to, like everyone else I know. Simon, man, I was on your show recently, so I'm glad we could do a sort of quid pro quo kind of thing here. I'm glad to have you on.
Yeah, it's quite an honor. I was, I've looked at some of your past guests and episodes and everything, and some really big names there, so it's quite the privilege to be on yours.
Well,
and it was a great privilege to host you on my show.
They all pale in comparison with you, Simon. So
it's just because I have an English accent,
That's what it is. I have a good friend, Martin Ridgway, who is from the UK, and he lives here in the States now, but he likes to tell people that he doesn't have an accent. It's all of us who have accents.
Yes, but there was a stage where we became vastly outnumbered.
Yes. Yes, it's true. So you're okay. Let's address the big elephant in the room. You're the host of the Rocking Self-Publishing podcast, which is a great show and one that I want all my listeners to subscribe to and listen to if they're not already. But you've been around for a while in that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when this is going live, but at the time of recording, we've been doing it. I don't know why I say that. It's like, we've been doing it for 2.5 years. It's a big enterprise. I have a studio. I don't. It's just me and my little microphone at my computer. But going on 2.5 years, 137 episodes. I think 137 actually went out today. So wow. It's been going a while, yeah.
So, okay, I'm about a year behind you. I would say because I'm at like you'll be episode like 70 or something around there.
Cool.
So that's cool. And I'm just gonna, you know what? I'm gonna run this out like an extra year. Just wait an extra year to let this go live, so that all your numbers are completely off.
Thanks.
No problem at all. So yeah, okay. I'm a little bit behind you, but I think I'm catching up fast. So why did you start the podcast in the first place?
It's a question people often ask me because
Yeah.
I'm not really an author as the people who I interview are.
Right,
I mean, I've
right.
written a couple of books. I haven't written any fiction for sure, and I think a lot of people start writing podcasts because they're writers. I started a podcast because I thought it would be cool to start a podcast,
Yeah.
and I was in the writing space, but as a narrator of audiobooks, and kind of I had that going on, and I had this gear, and I'm like, I want to start a podcast. I was always into radio. I loved radio as a kid, and you know, just I wanted to do something like that. And podcasting was really this. Well, it wasn't a new thing. It had been around for maybe a decade, right? But it was kind of having a renaissance, and people were realizing, oh, this is quite easy, and we all have easily accessible microphones and fast
Right.
internet and cheap hosting and WordPress, and you can just put everything up. And I mean, if you're a bit tech savvy, it's a couple of days to really get something together.
Right.
And so basically it was like, okay, I know these people through, the authors who wrote books that I would narrate. And I was like, these are really interesting people. They have fascinating stories. I should tie this together with my desire to do a podcast and interview them. And I will not deny, like, for the first maybe 136 episodes, it felt like, wow, I'm totally behind all these people, and I am in many senses. But I think there's definitely something there to, in a way, being an outsider and not having gone through the process in a way allows me to ask questions that maybe people who are new would also have. And I think that's, I like to think I've turned that into an angle of the show rather than a
Right.
disadvantage of not knowing, the ins and outs exactly.
Yeah, it is interesting that you talk to all of these authors, but you're not. I mean, you are an author. I mean, you've got 3 books out, right? Or more? Is it more than 3?
No, just two, in fact.
Well, you have, okay. So on Amazon, you have 3, which is
What's
one of
the
them.
third?
You've got Steps to a Rocking Self-Publishing Career, Bootstrapping
Oh.
for Indies, and Audiobooks for Indies.
The steps to a rocking self-publishing career is much more of a pamphlet than
Okay.
a book. I think it's a freely available. Is it maybe it's 99 cents.
It's
if I
99
couldn't,
cents, right.
Yeah, I
It counts.
It's free on Smashwords.
Did you write it?
Yes, absolutely.
Then you're an author.
Of 3 books. I genuinely didn't put that together as something that would come up on my author page. But all right.
Well, there you are. So, oh man, I should not have to explain to the guest which books are on their site. So
Should do
very
research on
dashing
myself.
photo, by the way. You've got
Thank you.
the jacket and the sweater vest on. Not bad.
I had a video of me with a picture of me with a scruffy beard and a t-shirt for a long time, and someone pointed out, dude, you might want to get like a professional picture. So
Yeah.
I got some professional
So you
pictures.
popped
done.
for something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I go back and forth on what kind of author photo I should present to the world, because sometimes I'm kind of in the scruffy beard and the I forget what the Henley style shirt or whatever, and then sometimes I'm in a bow tie and glasses. I never know what I should show people.
You're very smart in your Skype picture. I'm
Yeah,
looking at
thank you very
right now.
much. Yeah. So okay, you're talking to a market that you're not actively a member of. So what's that experience like? I mean, you're saying you use that as an advantage? I mean, how are you using it as an advantage?
Honestly, I think it was maybe more of an advantage earlier on because,
Yeah.
if someone's published many books and then started a podcast because they've published so many books, they're aware of kind of exactly, what KDP is and what a BookBub ad is and
Right.
how the upload process works and that you get 70%. And, I think it's easy to forget that someone who is just like, oh, self-publishing, what is that? Where, inside the industry, it's like, of course, self-publishing, everyone knows about
Yeah,
that. It's
yeah.
awesome. But then there are people who are, just hearing about this for the first time, and maybe they're considering what path they want to take, and they're not aware that Amazon pay you 70% royalties, or you can upload a book yourself, or you
Right.
get someone to design your own cover, or there are these things called reviews which you need to go find people to do.
Yeah.
And I think my initial lack of knowledge about that whole world encouraged me to ask those, in a way, stupid questions, but the questions that people might really want the answer to. And, of course, that stuff's available in, Amazon's Guide to Kindle or whatever. But
right. Mostly.
I think there are more enjoyable ways to consume than the technical manual from Amazon.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's interesting because when you do get into this, and now I started listening to podcasts. By the way, I'm literally writing the book on podcasts right now, and I'm totally going to hit you up at some point for a soundbite because I'm writing 30-Day Podcaster, which is a follow-up to 30-Day Author.
Very cool. Send me an ARC copy.
You got it. There's my free plug. So
it's your show.
I know, man. But the listener, they've already heard this like 10 times before this interview even started, so I have to apologize. But now, and see, I got myself off track. No, so now you're. Here's what happens when you start doing this work, like you're publishing for the first time, and you want to go out and you learn, and you inevitably encounter the sort of wealth of podcasts that are out there about self-publishing now, right? Yours is one of the ones that comes up right away, mostly because you got those keywords right in the title, which I think a lot of authors or a lot of podcasters make the mistake of going quirky instead of going directly for the title. But I guess you had to compete with the self-publishing podcast guys, right?
Well, they are the ultimate keyword optimized podcast.
Exactly.
I want to learn about self-publishing through a podcast.
Yeah.
Self-publishing podcast?
I have self-publishing answers, which we thought was going to get us a lot more traction than it did, but
honestly, I didn't put a lot of thought into keywords. I've never been to my, which is definitely been a problem at times. Not the most analytical person when it comes to this stuff, but I definitely see how it's worked out well in retrospect.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good show too, and I think that you're right in that you've got the angle of when people start, they'll start at the beginning usually, right? They get to learn right alongside of you, and that is kind of the best way for them to learn. Like as you ask those questions, those are the same questions I would ask as a new publisher, So that does work out. Well, thank you for your service, Simon.
Quite welcome. Thank you for all the flattery. Feels very good. But what is something I definitely keep in mind when I do the episodes, especially now, is because so much changes in self-publishing as new things arrive. And, the more I did the podcast, the more I would look into the stats, and it's like, whoa, people still go back and listen to like episode number 1 with Libby Hawker.
Yeah.
That was 2.5 years ago, but it'll still get, many downloads a month. And so that really encouraged me to now, keep it 80% at least relevant for many years, because now I know that, assuming things continue to go well, that in a couple of years people will still be listening to the episodes that I'm recording today, and I don't want them to be like, oh, well, that's not really relevant anymore because Amazon doesn't exist or something.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, that would be devastating to everyone.
That would be right. But you know what I mean. That was an extreme example. But all the little things that Amazon can change and all of this, I try to kind of talk about that, but keep it in the bigger picture of what it means to be a self-published author and things that are going to work now and are going to work in 50 years.
Yeah. How well has the content held up?
I like to think well, judging by the people, the number of people who are listening to the back episodes, it's really good. There's definitely stuff that has gone out of date, though, of course. But I think early on, I really tried to keep it evergreen.
Yeah. That's I have to fight the urge to not mention that I have a book called Evergreen. I failed. I totally failed. It is somewhat evergreen though, because I started from the beginning like everyone else and listened back to all the catalog. Both yours, well, not both, yours and Joanna Pinn's podcast and Self-Publishing Guys. I've listened to all those episodes and gotten a lot out of it. SPP, they kind of relaunched their show with sort of the warning that all this stuff that we learned before may not apply, and so I think some of it does kind of fade out. But I think over the long haul, and I'm having trouble speaking now, but over the long haul, I think most of your content holds up pretty well.
That's the goal. I mean, you can never expect 100% to hold up because things change, but for most of it too. And I think I think this is the goal with a lot of content creators because, a lot is in the long tail. A lot of the listens to my show are from, historic episodes. It's
Right.
not, every week all of the listens come in from the brand new episode, but it's like, that mass of back episodes, each one gets a little trickle, and that altogether means, any typical week I'll get more listens from the back episodes than I will get from the new one being pushed to subscribers.
Right. And in that way, it's kind of like the advice you get about publishing. The whole.
Wow, really apt, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it is. And, write as many as you can and get them out there. And when people discover one, then they've got a whole catalog to go back and check out. So.
And in terms of launching podcasts, when you search for people's names in iTunes, if you've got an interview with them, it's going to come up. They'll listen to it. If they like it, then they'll subscribe to your show.
Yeah.
So
do you see that a lot?
advantage.
I mean, I really kind of counted on that quite a bit with my show, hoping that people would be searching for these big names, but I can't say that that's as big a draw as I thought it would be.
It's hard to know because the analytics in iTunes and for podcastings are pretty damn awful.
Yeah.
I basically, and it's a terrible way to do things, but I'm like, I do that, so surely everyone else must.
Right. Yeah. Well, when you've got no other model, right? I mean, you're right. I mean, I can't find. It's so difficult to find real numbers for iTunes, especially. But
isn't it bizarre, like how on our websites we have Google Analytics, which is the most in-depth, amazing. Like they stayed on your website for 45 seconds and did this and did that. And with podcasting, it's like you got to download. From somewhere by someone.
See, and this is why I use FeedBurner. Although it doesn't go, it won't tell me who downloaded from where, from for how long they listened or any of that from iTunes specifically. But at least I can see sort of an aggregate of how many people are listening to the show. Because if you're going to listen to it, you're pretty much going to listen to it through that feed.
Right, and that data on. I would really like to know when people are dropping off because then it's like, okay, things got boring here.
Right.
And that would improve me so much as a podcaster and an interviewer. Like I do a lot of stuff on YouTube as well. And it's like, oh, you can see exactly where people are falling off. They just have graphs and data.
Right.
And it just breaks down into every minutiae and it's amazing. And I'm like, someone do that for podcasting, please.
Yeah, there you go. We'll invent that and then that'll be our big moneymaker. And we can just sit back and roll in cash.
Head out to Silicon Valley.
So YouTube, what are you doing on YouTube right now?
I do a lot of entertainment stuff. This is probably where I spend most of my time. I know this is a writing podcast, so I'll keep that brief. But
it's not a writing podcast. It's a entrepreneur podcast.
I run
with a heavy writing focus.
I run a couple of shows. One is basically, if you've ever seen one of those infotainment, the top 10 things you didn't know about X or the top 10 amazing facts you didn't know about Y.
Right.
I make this sort of videos. So the channel's called Top Tens Net, and the tens is with a Z. And we have a lot of videos, over 600 now, where I talk about this sort of stuff. And then I have a couple of newer channels. One is a kind of more long form, although shorter episodes. So it's more, one entry from a list and we kind of go into depth about it and explore it more. Unrelated channel, but that's the kind of concept. And then recently I started a vlog, which is a video blog, which it's like an incredibly narcissistic thing to do. But the reason I did it is I was good at kind of reading from a teleprompter and kind of this side of video. But I wanted to improve at being kind of in front of a camera and being more, natural rather than newsreader. So kind of like compared the narrator of a book to a podcaster. It's kind of like the newsreader to, a video personality, if you get my meaning. Yeah.
Is that Simon W. Vlogs?
Yeah, you picked up on it.
Oh,
cool.
yeah. Well, you're a featured friend on your other
that's
YouTube
right,
channel.
Yeah. I think I have a grand total of 300 subscribers on that vlog. But
301, really sir. I just subscribed while we were talking. So, and everyone else will too. That's cool. Okay, here's the deal. I have a video background, but I suck at doing video on YouTube because it's just so much time. I don't know why. I don't want to spend the time on it, I guess. So are you seeing a big benefit from that? And second, how are you organizing your time to do all that?
How do you, by benefits, you mean sort of return on investments and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, it pays my bills, absolutely. It's where where most of my money comes from and how I afford to live.
Really? All right. We must talk more.
Yeah, it's the big channel which does do several million views a month, which is, once you get up to those kind of levels, the advertising revenue becomes, decent.
Yeah.
But the reason, sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Well, more of a how do you manage the time to do that? But I guess you're kind of all media right now. You're not an author who's also doing vlogs and podcasts. This is basically what you're doing for your income, right?
I do audio and visual media. I'm not writing anything right now, but then again, I put out 1 podcast a week and 3 videos a day. So
sweet. All right. How do you manage that?
A combination of really tight organization and a team. So I have 2 partners on the channel who I work with, and then we have video and writers and audio production people to help us put everything together.
I have to apologize, man. I had no idea that you did this video channel. No idea.
No, not at all. It's really I often come onto a podcast and people definitely want to talk about writing, and the reason I do both of these things is because I started them, the Rocking Self-Publishing podcast and this YouTube channel at the same time. Yeah. So I'd been a freelancer before, and I was like, I want to do my own thing. I want to do something that is mine. And so I started doing these, and it's like, I'll start many things, and many will fail.
Right.
Hopefully something will work. Things did fail. I've tried many things, and they haven't worked. But both of these kind of really went forward, and so I'm like, wow, I really love doing both of these, so I kind of balance my time between them. But the reason you didn't see it is because I don't really cross them over. I don't think I've ever really mentioned on my podcast.
You have totally got to cross these over.
I probably should, but I always worry, like, people on my video channels, they don't want to know about self-publishing, and people who want to know about self-publishing, they don't want to watch infotainment videos that are just probably seen as...
Well, why don't you advertise, quote unquote, on your Rocking Self-Publishing podcast and see what kind of response you get?
I could.
Or not, man. Hey, don't do anything that makes you uncomfortable.
You're not the first person to suggest it.
Okay.
It's probably something I should be doing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I know you have a pretty decent, you've got a pretty big following on Rocking Self-Publishing. But here's the thing about authors, and I think you know this. We love getting into all kinds of other things because that's grist from the mill, right? So I think, man, you totally should. But hey, you're not here for that.
If you want inspiration for stuff, we talk about possibly every subject you can imagine on that YouTube channel. So
man, I'm in, dude. It's all I can do to keep from just clicking on something and watching it right now. So I'm actually clicking away. I'm going to go back to. I'm fascinated by this. You're not the first person I've had on the show who has a YouTube channel who's, more or less. You're the first person I've talked to, I think, who's actually making a living from that work. So that's fascinating to me. I really am interested in that. And I think there is crossover there, by the way, for the marketer in all of those authors. So I'm perfectly fine exploring how you did this.
Fantastic. As you wish, your show.
So how did you do this? How'd you get started, and what, how'd you get the, because you've got, what? I haven't seen the number. I can't find the number on how many subscribers are on the channel, but I do see that this one video has over 50,000 views, which is really impressive. So how'd you get there?
Our bigger videos have several million or in the millions. But we have, right now, I think we're sitting about 360,000 subscribers on the main channel, 24,000 on the smaller one, and then 301, thank you, on my vlog.
It'll get there.
It was interesting. It was actually on one of the failed ventures. I, as a narrator, I thought, what people will definitely want? Audio readings of, articles from popular, entertainment websites. So I went into Gmail and I'm like, hey, huge website owner, do you want me to read some of your articles and we can try selling them on your site as like a short audiobook?
Yeah.
And the response was, okay, why not? And because I wasn't charging them anything. I was like, we'll split the money. We'll get rich.
Right.
And that no one really bought those.
Yeah. Yeah.
So afterwards, this was for the main channel. Had several hours of audio left, that no one was really using. So I was like, I'm going to try putting these into a podcast. I'm going to try putting a slideshow up next to these and put them on YouTube. Excuse me, YouTube was the thing that really got traction and started taking off. And before you know it, several thousand subscribers had rolled in, and people were like, make more of these. And so we made more of them.
Well, that's awesome, man. That's, and I love discovering little nuggets like this, by the way, because I'm a fan of certain YouTubers. Like Phil DeFranco, everyone watch. I don't know if you may not even know who he is, but I love his show, and it's kind of quirky and it's kind of energetic, and the Hank Green and his brother do their show, and so there's a lot of content out there, and I've tried a couple of times to kind of dip my toes into those waters, but I don't think I didn't have a plan. First of all, I didn't have anything I didn't have a topic. We'll just put it that way. So you have a topic at least.
Yeah, I definitely think that's important, and having something that people, top tens and infotainment in general is a really broad topic, but I think having maybe that's more of like a theme in a way. Sort of this is there's people expect a very similar thing every day. There's a similar format, and and every day we put out a new video every day, which I think was one of the reasons why we had success, because people have a huge, especially on YouTube, there's a lot of demand for content. People want to be entertained for every day and have that kind of regular part of their schedule. I really believe that can be that's an important thing to do.
Yeah. So you're go ahead.
Go on.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, so yeah, I know. Now I've got super into YouTube, and I watch a whole lot of channels, and I mean, partly for inspiration, and it's what I do, but also because who watches TV anymore?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's actually getting to the point where I think I'd rather watch 3 minutes of YouTube than sit through whatever garbage is coming on Hulu or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Huge fan.
So okay. And I'm sorry if this feels like I derailed things, but I'm completely fascinated by this. So I'm glad we got to this, and Simon, you never told me this. I never had any idea you did this.
I have to say I prepped for the writing interview. different worlds to me.
See, that was your first mistake. Never prep for a Word Slinger podcast. It will derail no matter what. Well, we can talk about writing, and writing is something I talk about frequently. So that may be why I'm excited about the YouTube thing. But so I love the fact, by the way, that you're helping writers with your podcast. That's something I aspire to, and something I do with my own show and the other two shows. But I think there is kind of a glut of publishing podcasts out there. So how do you, just dipping back into podcasting for a moment, how do you differentiate and market that show so that you can keep the audience growing?
It's my English accent.
That's what it is, man. I'm doing this all wrong. I need to practice my British.
I think there's definitely. I wasn't the first mover, but I was definitely early to the game in self-publishing podcasts. I mean, there was the Creative Pen, Joanna's great show, self-publishing podcast as well. But in the self-publishing space specifically, there were other writing podcasts, of course. Yeah. But there wasn't really the large number there are today, and I think in a way I was lucky to kind of get in there when people were like, "Ooh, we need more of this," rather than, "Oh, there's a lot to choose from." Right. And what I generally feel, or I hope, is that the show does have loyal listeners. And I think from the few statistics that we can see from podcasting is that every week there's a similar number of people who are grabbing that show to their devices, and you can see it download. Yeah. And so people, once they're in, and whether maybe you don't even know if they're listening, you just see the download.
Yeah,
so people
that's all you get.
Right. So people might just be downloading it to their phone and thinking, "Oh no, another week of Simon's nonsense." But I think how I differentiate is, or I try to differentiate, is long form structured conversations is how I like to call them. So yeah. I definitely have, a starting way, and I ask people about their book, and I ask how they got into it. And then really from there, I just have a few talking points, and I dig into people a lot, and I'll look into everything they've been doing, but then I won't have a very detailed question plan off that. So basically, that kind of gives me the advantage of I know some of the interesting things about what they've done, and then I have the freedom to dive into them and basically kind of on the fly see, the person's interested in this, and this is definitely something they're passionate about, so this will be a good place to go, and just follow down those interesting paths rather than have the, very much like, here's the question, here's the answer. And I'm not saying other people don't do that. I don't think I'm the best interviewer in the world or anything, but
Yeah.
I think that kind of format is something, again, it's probably not the right way to do things. And I'm like, I really like that, so everyone else will. But I think there's definitely, that's been a very established way of doing things in radio for a long time. And I think it's just a great, podcasting is a great format for doing that.
Yeah. I have to say, I mean, when I got into it, I got into it because of guys like you and the SPP guys and Joanna, and it was interesting to me because I'm an author learning, and there are people I want to talk to and people I want to meet, but I don't really have an avenue for doing that. But with a podcast, I have an excuse to make that call, and I did the same thing that you're talking about. Like, I basically create the show that I want to listen to. Right. And I actually get criticized occasionally for, there's no like targeting because who's the target market for this podcast? And basically I'm the target market for this podcast.
Yeah.
But unless I'm going to buy about $3 million worth of my own books, maybe I should rethink that. So
I think there's, something about over-targeting. It can make it dull to do, right?
Yeah. Well, and then
show, you can do whatever you want, which is great for you.
Exactly. Right.
It's more enjoyable. And I think, that's not entirely selfish. If the show's fun to do, it's probably going to be more fun to listen to.
Right. Exactly. I agree with that. And if you love something and that gives you the energy to come back to it, which is, the only thing really that keeps me coming back to, I've got 3 shows now, right? And the only thing that really keeps me coming back to any of them is the fact that I just enjoy doing it. Because it's a hell of a lot of work, for something that doesn't always pay off monetarily.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a lot of work, but I think it's also a lot of fun. I mean, if I didn't enjoy it, I certainly wouldn't do it. Right.
So, okay, speaking of money, since I brought it up, and I'm not going to ask you specifics or anything, so unclench. But I am curious though, if are you able to monetize the podcast at all?
I have more in the past. I'm not really focused on it right now. It's certainly more of a hobby at the moment. Yeah. I got some great, early on. One, the great thing to do was to connect with other authors. So I did the audiobook of Write, Publish, Repeat. Right. I've done David Cochran's audiobook, who's a friend of mine. He actually lives in Prague as well as me. So I got to do his audiobook just through these connections I've made doing the podcast. So, while not directly monetized, I mean, I wouldn't have had those big books to do if I had never started it. And you mentioned the great thing about podcasts is they're just a great way to kind of talk to and meet interesting people. And sometimes something like that comes along and it's like, well, that's a really good deal to do, to have that kind of book come onto my plate. And, there are other ways, of course. I do I have the odd affiliate things. I have a course on making an author website. So that's on Udemy. That's actually free, but, I do the usual thing. Here's how to set up your website. Here's my hosting link so you can check out HostGator, who I use, and use these guys, and then I get a kickback from them. And, the show notes have the Amazon affiliate links and all of the usual stuff that someone with a podcast would probably do.
Yeah. So aggregate, does that seem to kind of bring a stream of revenue in for you?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not an entirely altruistic venture, but it's more hobby income at the moment rather than living income. But that's just because I think with podcasts are absolutely monetizable if you've got the audience, and it just depends on for me at least, it's what I want to focus on at the time, and right now it's not that. So
yeah, you've got other bigger things going, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I'm not an enormously money-driven person, so I would happily make sacrifices to do something more fun and take
Right.
less money than I would to take the money and do something less fun.
Right.
If you get my meaning, which I know is not not an option for everyone. I'm lucky that I do make a base amount,
Yeah.
which allows me to make the decision like, okay, I don't need more than that, rather than, okay, I need to get up to that amount so I can buy food. So
Right,
obviously, I
exactly.
know it's a luxury to be in that position. I don't want to come across as arrogant in that way, or whatever the term would be, but it's never been the primary driving force for me.
Right. Yeah, I have to say, and first of all, I want to point out for some reason I'm being buzzed by an aircraft right now, and I, rather than muted, I figured, well, we'll let the listener enjoy.
It's atmosphere.
I don't understand that. I get that in the middle of almost every show now for some reason, but the idea about money, like money doesn't drive me either. Unfortunately, I mean, I think if it did, I could really be. I could really be rolling because once I get obsessed with something, I chase it down. But I'm with you. I want. It's not necessarily the attitude of I just want enough to cover my needs. I want to be comfortable and have fun,
Absolutely.
but I also don't want to have to be a slave to whatever it is I'm doing to earn that money. So I think I understand where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, you put it better than I could.
All right. Well, I just stole your ideas and reworded them, which is what authors do, everyone.
Yeah.
So do you have plans for any more books? I mean, you say you're not writing right now, but do you get a kind of a revenue stream from your books at all, or is it just mostly for promotion?
Mostly, I think I dropped it to 99 cents a while ago as part of promotion. I never really raised it back up because I kind of felt if people want to pick it up for 99 cents, they can. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
I don't really have a good reason for it. I didn't really think about it too much, but I was like, I'm happy to.
You know what it
get
is?
for 99
I
cents.
tell entrepreneurs this. I tell clients this all the time. A book is good credibility, and
Yeah.
it's a good business card. So it gives you a topic to talk about. If someone invites you to go talk, you can go talk, and you can offer your book for sale, and you look legitimate.
Yeah. I think with the book thing is every year, and it's February now, mid-February, I'm like, this will be the year that I really step up my game with the books. This will be the year.
Yeah.
And then I'm a big proponent of mastermind groups, of getting together, with people who, you bounce your ideas off, you bounce your, what I want to do over the next 3 months or a year, and they kind of feed back to you. And I think if you find the right group, they can be brilliant in that they can tell you when you shouldn't be doing something. And so this year it's like, I want to do this and this and this, and they're like, there is no way that's going to happen. They're like, Simon, I know you work pretty hard, but you would die.
Well, first of all, you're producing 3 videos a day. And I'm still fascinated with how you do that. Like, so jumping back to that, okay, you're producing 3 videos a day. I have a goal of producing 1 video a week, and I'm not fulfilling that. So, and I had a whole production studio at my beck and call at one point. So it's not an easy thing. So how are you organizing your time to do that?
Basically, I think it comes down to organization, batching, and the team. So
Okay.
the organization and the batching is really close together.
I keep forgetting you have a team. I need a team.
It's not really they're all contractors, and I hired them through like some through Upwork and other places, and it's not like I have I'm still very much working in my apartment. Don't get any ideas of this grand thing that's going on. But so
The Simon Whistler complex somewhere in Prague.
Right,
It's a mountain shaped like your head.
my desk that is about 1.5 meters wide. But yes, so the main thing is I have partners on the channel who basically they will produce the scripts that we're using for the videos, and they will come to me, and I basically cue them into my teleprompter. I have the lighting and the gear, and my girlfriend will complain about the fact that half the living room is now a studio.
Been there.
Yeah. And so basically I'll stand in front of the green screen, I'll rack the teleprompter up with the scripts, and over a couple of days I'll record, a couple of weeks worth of material, because otherwise getting the mic on, getting the, and I'll rotate my shirts. But if you're doing it every day, it's kind of, you've got to iron a shirt and put a shirt on and mic yourself up and then get the camera right and do the focus. And you've done this stuff before, so you know what it's like. Yeah. If you just prepare everything and then just, whip it all out at one time, it's just the way to do things. I'm a huge fan of batching.
Yeah.
And then I have a few people who help me out. So some guy who will edit the video down, so cut out all my mistakes and give it that jump cut feel that a lot of YouTube videos have that make it very fast paced. So it's like blah 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 cut, blah 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 cut, blah 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 cut. That very
right.
It's something kind of unique to YouTube. At least that's where I first saw it. I'm like, what's with all the jump cuts? And then I realized, oh wow, it's really compelling.
It adds energy to the video. I hadn't really seen much of that before YouTube, honestly. I mean, it existed. You saw it a lot in like certain like youth oriented video on TV.
Yeah,
that was pretty much where you saw it.
And I think that's right. YouTube is a young audience, and
right.
I don't know if it's shorter attention spans, but it is whatever it is. It is certainly like at first I was like, what are these people really screwing up that much? And it's like, well, yes, and
yes,
it really is. It kind of ties in because it's like to read some script perfectly the first time is going to make it seem really boring. But if you allow yourself to read faster and kind of be more animated, you're more likely to screw up. But that's okay because then you get a cool jump cut.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Wow, that's a good point. I actually hadn't thought about that. Okay, you've changed my perspective on this. I'm constantly toying with the idea of going into video more. And I recently kind of rebooted my vlog, which is dull because I got nothing. I don't have a topic, so I need to find a topic. That's where I need to go. It can't be just the same thing I talk about on the podcast. I got to do something different.
I am trying to find the vlog is really the first kind of free form video I've ever done. So it started off and it was kind of me just talking at the camera, but now I've been watching a lot of people and taking a lot of inspiration from different places. And one of those was, wow, these people definitely go outside. And so now I'll just be walking down the street with the camera on like a little Jobo stand or whatever in front of me. Like, hey, what's up? I'm going to the coffee shop because I'm so sick of being in the house. And I get some coffee. And I'm super strong, and just talking to myself and just getting used to the fact that people are definitely staring at me.
Yeah, I know. That's the weird part. Yeah.
I'm getting used to it now. And just trying to find my topics and kind of master that side of video production because the vlog is all done by me right now, so that takes up several hours in the morning. I get up and the first thing I'll do is edit and mix down and add some music and mostly my cousin went to film school, so I've been picking his brain a ton. And the biggest piece of advice I've taken away is if you have 40 minutes of stuff, you should about 4 minutes of material or something. So it's just I cut out swaths of just boring stuff in the hope that I have 4 minutes of less boring stuff to have in a vlog at the end of the day.
How are you? How long are the vlog videos usually?
4 to 10 minutes usually. Okay. Sometimes they run longer if I do Q&As, so that'll take up more time, or I'll try to talk about a specific topic. But I find that I definitely know topics should be a thing on YouTube, and that you should definitely have a subject. But I find that when I do that, I just get so boring. Yeah. Like I watch myself back, and even I phase out. I'm like,
right,
really boring dude talking about this. Like,
right. Yeah. And that's kind of the problem I've run into. Because also I'm just one of those guys. If you listen to the Wordslinger podcast at all, you realize that I'm all over the place when it comes to my interests. Like I'm not going to be able to. Excuse me. I'm not going to be able to be that guy who all I talk about is self-publishing on this show, or all I can do that when I have partners, because then we can kind of bounce around and share ideas and what ifs and that sort of thing. But if it's just me staring at a camera talking to you every day about the same topic, I'm going to run out of material in the first week.
I always admire people who do solo podcasts because I'm like, wow, no one would listen to me talk for an hour by myself. I maybe it's like the extrovert thing. Like I love talking to people, and I always find that I'll have talking to someone interesting is always an interesting conversation, but then trying to come up with something interesting to talk to people about just by myself,
Right.
this is gonna be really dry.
I would much rather. That's why this show's an interview format show. If people had to listen to me for even 10 minutes each day or each week, I think I'd have nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Some people manage it though, and I'm like, wow, you must be so interesting.
Yeah. Well, if you're, I can't think of a good example, but yeah, you're right. Some people do pull it off. Oh, Pat Flynn. Pat Flynn somehow does that.
Exact, great example. Yeah, he does those shows where he's just without the interview, and it's like, wow, Pat Flynn can really just talk about something for an hour.
Yeah.
I'll totally listen.
Yeah, exactly. I'm listening and taking notes. Well, speaking of an hour, I don't want to take up any more of your time. We're kind of hitting the mark. So this went a whole different direction than I kind of thought it would.
Yes,
and I'm sorry I ambushed you, really, but dude, you should totally have told me about your podcast. I mean, your YouTube channels, man. I mean, you totally should have.
I realize this, and as these things become more significant, I realize people, they do kind of come up. So I have been putting together simonwhistler.com, which is where I will direct
yes,
people.
That's the other thing I was going to tell you that off air. Like, you need more of a web presence.
Yeah, and I'm also, it's just, I have a podcast and YouTube channels, but I don't really use social media. I don't have a website. I have Gmail, or just email.
Really. I think I've figured it out, Simon. I've figured it out. We are the missing components for each other's career here. I think what we need to do is we need to team up like Batman and Robin, but I call Batman.
Oh, come on. No, I don't want to team up with Robin. Who wants to be Robin?
You can be Nightwing. All right. Yeah, because I think we would complement each other. In all the various uses of the word compliment. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. If you, listener, are interested, you definitely need to check out Simon's podcast. If you're interested in being an author, go check out Rocking Self-Publishing Podcast. But now you got to go check out, and I added this to his list of titles. He's the host of Top 10s Net on YouTube. You will find a link to that in the show notes. I've already gone and copied and pasted that. I'm a subscriber, and you should be too. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to check it out. It looks fun.
Let me know what you think. I'm always looking, especially from a professional. I welcome and absorb feedback.
Well, so and you've got 10 million views or whatever. I don't think you need my advice. I think you're doing okay. So I'll just let you know how awesome it is, like everyone else thinks. We'll move on from there.
You've obviously never been into YouTube's comment section.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. All right. Point well made. All right. Everyone else, be sure to check out the show notes so you can go and check out all these things. I can't wait to see the vlog. That's where I'm going to go in and troll you on YouTube comments.
Great.
And stick around after the show for my wrap up, which I'm sure is going to be hilarious. And I will see you all next week. Thanks for being on the show, Simon. Sorry about that. And
Kevin, it was a total pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. See you next week, everyone. So that was Simon Whistler, and I hope you enjoyed that interview. I enjoyed that interview. Man, I love talking to guys like Simon. He's got all this ambition, he's got all this energy, and he's doing so many things. And you start wondering, like, how do they do it all? And I totally caught him off guard when we start talking about his YouTube work, because he was, he wasn't prepared for that. And, I think part of that is a branding problem on my part, actually, because I don't really break down what this show is supposed to be, what Wordslinger Podcast is supposed to be. So let me do that for you right now. I am an author, and I am an entrepreneur, and this show reflects those two aspects of my life, and they also reflect the aspects of my life where I'm trying to improve upon, how I think, how I behave, how I contribute to society. And, I like to talk to people who are doing things that I find inspiring. So really, in the end, the show is, honestly, it's all about inspiration. That's what it really comes down to. It's inspiration for you to go out and sort of look at your own story, reinvent yourself a little, take yourself into new chapters, we'll say. And so I hope you get that out of this show. I hope that's what this show does for you. I know it's it's not a very genre narrow topic, which is, I'm okay with that, because in a way it's sort of like a weekly mastermind with someone new. You get to introduce yourself, or they get to introduce themselves. You don't really introduce yourself. You could, if you were to call me. Oh, look how I worked that in. If you were to call me at 281-809-WORD, 281-809-9673, you could introduce yourself to me and my guests and to the world and ask your questions. We can mastermind together. So if there are things you've wanted to know, here's where this comes in really handy. If you call and leave a voicemail, or if you go on my website and send an email, and that's wordslingerpodcast.com, what that does for me is give me more material to work with and give me something I can go research and answer if I don't already know the answer. And what it does for you is give you an answer to a pressing question. So, and then here's a bonus. What it does for the listeners, for the rest of the listeners, is some other folks may actually have that question too. So by asking, you actually help out someone else. So there you go. It's kind of rounded logic, but I think that's what this show is. So there it is in a nutshell. As we wrap up, thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for your support. Thanks for all your help. I'm sorry I keep swallowing. It's another swallow day. But thank you for, all that you do, really. I mean, listening alone is actually a big support for me. Seeing those numbers every week and the people who download the show, it's very comforting. It lets me know that I'm being heard. It lets me know that we're actually building something really cool here. If you want to support the show financially, of course, I do encourage that. And thank you in advance. You can go to wordslingerpodcast.com, click on the Patreon logo, view the video if you want, and you can contribute as little as $1 a month. That's like 1/4 for every episode you listen to. Now, I do take bigger Patreon contributions, so feel free to go nuts. But you do what's comfortable for you. And thank you so much on behalf of me, but also on behalf of everyone who listens to and hopefully benefits from the show. On behalf of the guests, because we're promoting their careers and their work as well. So you're chipping into a big pot. You can also, of course, support the show by buying any one of my books. 30-Day Author is probably one you might be interested in if you're interested in this show and the content. 30-Day Author will teach you how to develop a daily writing habit. You can write your book in 30 days or less. Actually, you can write your book in any time frame you want. I only say 30-Day Author because I feel like people would balk if I called it, 1 week author or 15-day author or 1-day author. So you can write a book in any time frame you want as long as you're willing to put your butt in the chair. Let's just spoil the ending there right now. So, but I do give you some really cool habits that you can develop, ways to develop that daily writing habit that you want. Some tips and tricks, and even some tips on marketing. If you want to break into fiction, I get a little bit in there about that. It's mostly geared towards the kind of guy and the kind of gal who want to go out and put a dent in the universe, though, with a business. So either way, I think you'll enjoy it. So check that out. You can also check out my fiction at kevintumans.com/books, where you can find probably something entertaining. I'm just going to put that out there. And I hope you like that. Now, if you like any of those works, I would appreciate, just like this show, I need reviews. So this show, you can review on iTunes, Stitcher, Google+, anywhere you find it. And the books also could use some reviews. So if you can pop on Amazon, especially, and Goodreads, leave reviews. That helps readers find the work. Reviews help listeners find the podcast. That stuff really helps out. And the goal here is, as I build my own little empire, I want it to be able to help support the community that I'm a part of. So thank you so much in advance for all that. Now, end of show. Let's just wrap everything up. Thanks for tuning in again for another week of Wordslinger fun. Tune in next week. We're going to have another great guest. I can't wait to show off to you. And if you have any questions, of course, please call 281-809-WORD, 281-809-9673. I'll answer anything within reason. No pornography. Well, maybe a little pornography. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next week.
Wordslinger.